Hi, everybody. It's Tim. It's great to be back with you again today in our journey through the Bible. Our reading for today was in 1 Kings, chapter 1 and chapter 2. It's a brand new book. Tells the story of the third king of Israel. The first one was King Saul. You find his story in 1 Samuel. And then the second king was David. You find his story in 2 Samuel. And now that we're beginning in 1 Kings, we find the story of the king number 3, and that would be Solomon. David is old. In fact, the Bible says he was well stricken in age. We read when the story opens in chapter 1. Now, I don't know about that. He was only 70 at the time, which to me doesn't seem very old. But it depends on your situation and who you are. I have had friends who had physical problems as they grew a little older because they played football in high school and had injuries that caught up with them as time went on. And that could be the case with David. He had a difficult life and a hard life. He wasn't playing games. He had people trying to kill him. He was fighting Philistines and he was fighting Amorites. And so finally the day came when he was not as fast or strong as he used to be, and the army would not let him go out with them anymore. And so now at 70, he's bedridden, he's in very poor health, and people knew that. And David's son, Solomon's older brother, took advantage of David's weakness, and he was proclaiming himself as the king. Verse 5 says, Adonijah, the son of Haggith, exalted himself, saying, I will be king. And he prepared chariots and horsemen and 50 men to run before him. And his father had not displeased him at any time, saying, Why hast thou done so? David knew what his son was doing. It sounds like he didn't take his plan very seriously. Maybe he was thinking that, after his death, the two brothers could work out that little detail of who would be the king. Solomon had already been designated as the one who would be king, and everybody knew that. But interesting to know that Adonijah was actually Absalom's younger brother and a slow learner, because it sounds like this was Absalom's plan that he tried to put into action, having chariots and horsemen. Where he goes, 50 people run before him. Here's the future king. So they would be impressed. Maybe he thought, okay, the plan will work this time. It sure didn't work for Absalom very well. But how interesting it is, isn't it? That the man that God actually had in mind as the next king, and the one who had been designated as the next king, did not take 50 men to run before him. He seems perfectly content to let God control the events that would lead to his eventual coronation when the time was right. I think his attitude gives us a little glimpse of the kind of wisdom that would characterize his reign. Actually, his older brother, Adonijah, and his plan to usurp the kingdom had the opposite effect. He didn't become the king. In fact, he didn't survive for very long because he proved he was not a worthy man. But it had the effect of speeding things along to bring Solomon to the place of being the third king of Israel. Because once David heard that Adonijah had actually gone ahead with his plans and assembled some people who could anoint him and proclaim, Long live King Adonijah, he took the initiative, and he had the priests Zadok and Benaiah and Nathan the prophet and some mighty men anointed Solomon king right away and proclaimed that he was the king. And that was kind of the end of the plans of Adonijah. It happened much more quickly than even Solomon thought it would. But it's significant, isn't it, that Solomon didn't feel like he needed to help God with his plan. And at the same time, he was not so complacent that he did not act when action was needed. We can learn something from that, because God has a plan for your life. Maybe God has given you a vision for something he would like you to do at some point. My friends, you don't need to kick down the doors to help God out with his plans. Learn from Solomon. Let God be God and do his work in his own way and in his own time. And I think the results would be much better for you in the long run and for those around you. You can learn from watching Solomon and how he handled this situation. And as we continue to read, we'll see what a great king he was and how his reign made such a difference. And we'll see why as well. Our reading for tomorrow is in 1 Kings chapter 3 and chapter 4. And I would encourage you to be reading and to get into that. And be glad to be with you again tomorrow. See how that works. Have a great day, folks.